The mountains of central Appalachia were created more than 450 million years ago. Scientists think they were once as tall as the Rockies before erosion by ice, wind, and water cut them down to size. They are among North America's oldest mountains and some of the most biologically diverse. A wide variety of plant and animal life thrive beneath a thick canopy of trees, including oak, ash, hickory, walnut, beech, maple, pine, and spruce.
Forests are very important to our environment, to society, to the whole world.
Global warming, climate change, carbon sequestration, runoff. There's no better filter out there than a forest for the water.
Beneath the soil, prehistoric peat bogs were buried before they could decay. Over the millennia, these ancient plants were compressed into a burnable black rock known as bituminous coal. Beginning in the late 1800s, coal brought thousands of people to these mountains to work underground digging it out. Mining became a lifeblood of the region. In the decades after World War II, the backbreaking work of coal mining was mechanized. Deep mining gave way to surface mining. Using giant earth movers and explosives, miners cut into and leveled hundreds of mountains, taking away the forests as well as the coal. The Surface Mining Control and Reclamation Act of 1977 required soil and rock on former mine sites to be stabilized and compacted to prevent landslides. These sites were planted with non-native grasses and shrubs because little else would grow on them.
So there was a lot of issues prior to the passage of this act with regards to water quality and landslides and land stability. So the language within the law was pretty heavy with regards to stabilization of the sites after the mining is finished. And so what we see throughout the Appalachian region right now is a major land change or a shift in land cover type because of this law.
Most folks would look at a reclaimed mine site, and especially if it's a freshly reclaimed site, and look at it and say, well, that's green and that's pastoral and it looks like a golf course. But the fact of the matter is, Mother Nature really doesn't favor golf course type of environments because there's very little biodiversity there.
More than 1.5 million acres of Appalachian mountains and forests have been affected by surface mining. Most of that property is now hard-packed scrubland of little use or value. The ground is too hard for trees to grow up or water to seep in. This has led to problems with flooding, erosion, and stream pollution. The former mine sites present an ecological and economic challenge for Appalachia, but also an opportunity. In the late 1990s, foresters at the University of Kentucky began research into how trees could be returned to these former mine sites, creating both biodiversity and timber crops for future harvest. The effort, called Green Forest Work, has developed proven methods for restoring Appalachia's diverse forests. Green Forest Work partners with private landowners, government, and corporations to secure access to former mine sites, break up compacted soil, and replace invasive plants and grasses with the native trees that were there before mining.
So this is part, even though we're 15 people today, we're making a difference to come out here and actually get this site on a trajectory to be a forest once again. Leaving this as a grassland, it might take hundreds, if not thousands of years for it to sort of naturally recover to the native forest that was once here. What we're planting today are native hardwood species. We try to plant the same species that were here prior to the mining to bring back that community that was lost. This Appalachian region has some of the most biodiverse forest in the temperate region of the world, and as you can see behind me, it's sort of reclaimed with a couple of different grass species. So we went from an ecosystem that had over 100 different trees and maybe over 100 different herbaceous species associated with it to being reclaimed with 2 or 3 species.
The sites that were mined, although they're grasslands and green and covered over with vegetation and so forth, they're essentially in a state of arrested natural succession. In other words, Mother Nature can't even bring the forest back in by herself. There has to be intervention by man to mitigate the problems.
So this is a way of sort of changing the progression of these sites and allowing the native ecosystem to come in.
So far we've planted around 20 trees. Yeah, somewhere around 15 to 20 trees.
But we've got close to 1 million acres out there. This year we've got probably 30 projects through GFW, Green Forest Works, and they're scattered throughout 8 different states in the Appalachian Coal Basin. We should get, the trees should be touching, I would say, in about 10 to 15 years, and that'll help the form, that'll grow upright as opposed to outward growth. And you know, we'll get some crown closure. Eventually the ground will be completely shaded out. The only thing that will grow in there will be the shade-tolerant spruce themselves, and it'll revert back into a pure stand of red spruce. So you know, this process will take several decades.
There is no better place to see how this process can work than in Perry County, Kentucky, on the former Starfire mine site. In the late 1990s, researchers planted test plots of native trees in mounds of rocky spoil.
So the site that we're on today, in 1997, would have been a rubble pile of just loose rocks that were brought in by the mining company during the mining process. And knowing that compaction was sort of a limiting factor on getting the trees to grow, they asked the mining company to get this land stable as required by the law, and then just dump, you know, real closely to each other piles of spoil. So I've been coming out to this site since 1999, and the first year I came out, you could barely even see any trees. And I even mentioned I was with a class that I was teaching, I was like, well, this was a waste of money. But every year I've come back and we've brought classes, and we've brought, you know, people from the mining industry, people from, you know, who own land that has been mined. And we see the development of this forest. And at about the age between 8 and 10 years, we really saw the canopy start to close, and we really saw a change in the whole dynamic of this system, because all of that grass and those legumes just disappeared. But around me right now, I have white ash and red oak and white pine, and all of these are native species to Kentucky, and they're the species that would be predominant in the forest prior to the mining.
Green forest work has the potential to make a huge difference in central Appalachia. It can help restore biodiversity to the land, improve air and water quality, and create jobs in renewable forest products industries. It is an essential investment in a region that has contributed so much to America's growth and prosperity.
You know, forests are not only beautiful for wildlife and good for recreation and humans and so forth, but it's functionally very important for us to preserve them, especially across a landscape that's been hurt as bad as it has in the coal fields of Appalachia.